Welcome to today's PACE webinar on building confidence as a leadership competency in finance. This is going to be a very exciting topic today for me, and I think for many of you. We see the finance function becoming a business partner and the skills that we need changing to be more soft skills rather than the traditional hard skills. And this is certainly something that's very important for all of us to learn more about. I'm excited today to have Sheena Yap Chan as our speaker. For those of you not familiar with PACE, we're the Profitability Analytics Center of Excellence. We're a professional association dedicated to organizations helping organizations make better, more informed decisions using data analytics. If you'd like to become a member, it's free. You'll get access to the multitude of resources that we offer, including webinars like this, podcasts, articles, ebooks, and much more. We have a little bit of housekeeping before we start. If you'd like to receive CPE credit for attending today's session, be sure to use your actual first and last name when you signed in. If you need to edit the name on the screen, click Participants, which is at the bottom of your screen, and then hover over your name on the list. Click the three dots, and you'll find an option to rename. Please note you have to attend at least 50 minutes of today's session and answer at least 3 polling questions in order to receive the CPE credit. We are recording this session, so please keep your camera off and microphone muted until the Q&A session. We will be answering questions at the end, so please enter your questions in the chat feature, and we'll respond to them as time permits at the end. Okay, over to you, Sheena.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Hope you're having a fantastic week, fantastic day. And I'm super excited to be here, grateful to be a speaker for you today. So for those of you who may or may not know me, my name is Sheena Yap Chan. I'm a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, keynote speaker, TEDx speaker, podcaster, consultant on visibility, leadership, confidence, because that is so important in today's world, especially when it comes to influencing decisions and being seen as a leader. It goes beyond just numbers. So I'm super excited to share my presentation today, and we're going to have lots of fun. Feel free to share where you're from. I'm from Toronto, Canada. So if there's any Canadians up in here, feel free to say hello, and even our American friends. So I'd love to see where everybody's from, just kind of share. And yeah, let me just start sharing my screen and we will get started. All right. Hopefully you could see my screen. Just put a 1 in the chat to see if you could see it. Oh, Toby's also from Toronto. Yes, Toby, I'm glad we're both from Toronto, Canada. But if you could see my screen, just put a 1 in the chat so I am aware. It looks like awesome. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Toby. Thank you so much. All right, let's get started. So from reporting to influence, building confidence as a leadership competency in finance. So the shift finance needs to make. Finance leaders don't just report, they influence. Reports don't drive decisions, conversations do. Data alone doesn't persuade, confidence does. Technical skill gets you a seat, presence gets you heard. So the gap is many finance professionals know the numbers, but struggle to influence decisions in the moments that matter. You're great at what you do, you crunch the numbers, you know what you're talking about, but sometimes it doesn't come out the way you want it seen. And especially when it comes to the decision makers, it's important to share it in a way that makes sense, that helps them realize, oh, these numbers matter, because then we can go and see what the next move is, or what product production will look like, or what revenue looks like, right? You can actually make those influential decisions when it's reported properly, when it goes beyond just numbers. Numbers are important, of course, they drive everything, but you could still be of influence. You're more than just crunching numbers, especially in finance, with the way the world is today. There's so many things we can create, share, talk about, have those key decisions made with the right shareholders when it's aligned. So here's a quick check. This is a polling question. This is going to be one of three polling questions. So I will read them out, or Rafe, if you would like to read them out.
Sure. There's again, three questions. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. First is I speak up confidently in meetings. Second, I lead with insights, not just data. And third, my recommendations influence decisions.
So you just have to rate from 1 to 5. One is not likely, and then five, of course, extremely likely. We'd love to see what those answers are. And this is part of the curriculum, so you do have to answer it, and so we can see where we're at. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? We all have to start somewhere. If speaking up is not something you're comfortable with, I speak to a lot of professionals where speaking up is still something that they still have challenge with.
Right. As you mentioned, folks need to complete this question in order to get CPE credit for attending.
So I think there's a poll that Rafe has, so if you can enter it there, that would be great. And I see there's someone from Argentina. That's awesome. Well, welcome to the presentation. So for anyone who wrote their polling answers on the chat, please add it to the poll questions that's been created so that we will have the answers. So thank you so much. So here's some of the results. So 50% of you are kind of in the middle, like you're up and down. Only 14%, oh wait, yeah, 7% are extremely likely to speak up, 14% on the lower end. So most of you are pretty good, which is great. I lead with insights, not just data. So let's see. 50% of you do lead with insights, which is great. There's still a small number that still just go with data. These are great insights as well. And then my recommendations. So most of you are in like the middle. You still kind of hesitate, or it's like a and it's fine, right? We all start somewhere, and it's not always easy to say what you want to say or share your insights, but today I'll be sharing a framework that can help you do that. So thank you so much. This is actually one of three polling questions that we have a couple more, but appreciate you for tuning in, being part of the conversation. So here's today's session objectives. Following this webinar, you'll be able to translate financial insights into clear strategic messages that support business decision making rather than just reporting results. Communicate with greater confidence and executive presence by applying key elements of the visible framework, which I will be sharing later on in this presentation, in conversations with leadership. And increase your visibility and influence within your organization by positioning your work and insights as valuable contributions to strategic outcomes. So we'll get started now. So here's the hidden barrier. Why strong analysis often gets overlooked. Over-explaining instead of leading with the message. That's something that I've been guilty of. I think if I over-explain, people will understand, when really sometimes the over-explaining can go overboard and people will not understand. So that's one thing I've learned to kind of get over. Waiting to be asked instead of guiding discussion. A lot of us feel like, if we just need to wait for someone to ask us for our opinion. It's okay to share your insights, share your story, share the decision-making factors so that you can go out there and be seen as a leader. Sometimes it's okay to make the first move, take the first step. There's nothing wrong with that. I know sometimes we think if we wait, it's okay, but sometimes when you wait, you just keep waiting, right? And you're just waiting for that moment when someone comes up to you. Downplaying insights to avoid being too assertive. If your insights can make key decisions in your firm, in the business that you're in your own business, why not share it, right? If it creates a win-win situation, it's important to share it. Letting senior voices override financial reality. The numbers matter, right? And when you can share the numbers in a way that really makes the decision important to make, for them to see, it goes beyond that. So if you've ever gone through some of these things, don't worry. You're not the only one, right? I've been through all of them. Downplaying myself, waiting to be asked, especially in a culture that I grew up in, I've always been told to never make any noise, stay in the background, do as you're told. Don't be too much, don't make the first move, don't be out there. And it took a lot out of me to get to unlearn all those things in my upbringing, to relearn new things and really be seen as a leader. And visibility doesn't always mean you have to be everything everywhere all at once, right? It's about being in front of the right audiences, the right decision makers to help you move forward and be the leader that you're meant to be. So the result is you have good work, but low visibility and limited influence. We want good work, we want high visibility, we want you to be seen as that person. Because one of the things I've always seen is that people do the work and they never share anything that they were able to accomplish or share what they've been able to achieve. And because of that, they get overlooked. And that's not what I want for you. And this is why we're here today. I want you to be okay to share what you've been able to achieve, what you've been able to accomplish, to make those decisions, right? The right decisions, because you've put in the work, and it would be a disservice if you don't go out there and share it to the right decision makers. So in a real meeting before, you work through the numbers step by step, over explain every detail, wait for questions. And when you do that, what happens? The message gets lost, leaders interrupt or move on, no clear decision is made, right? So then it's just you did all this work and then nothing happens. But this is what happens when you're influencing a decision. So after, if you share things like margin is down 3% driven by supplier costs, this will impact profitability in the next quarter. We recommend adjusting pricing in Q3. Now people, the decision makers will be more keen to figure out, well, why is margin down? What can we do to bring it up? What are some of the things we can do? How can we help profitability in the next quarter? So what changes? You have a clear direction, there's faster alignment, and you lead with the conversation, right? So now it's not just about numbers, it's more than numbers. It's what those numbers can predict in the next quarter, in the next year, even in the next week. And so it makes a big difference, right? You already have all the info, you already know your stuff. It's just saying it in a way that helps them drive the decisions. So I wanted to share a framework that I've created. It's called the Visible Framework. It's a framework that I've shared at many industry conferences, corporate settings, and it's a practical way to build confidence and influence. So it's a simple approach to help you communicate insights with clarity, strengthen executive presence, influence better business decisions. And so the Visible Framework is derived from the word visible. It has 7 elements, and each letter from the word visible represents an element and a pillar. So I'll go through each one of them. So V is for voice, I is identity, S is for spotlight, I is inner work, B is for belief, L is leverage, and E is elevation. Confidence isn't personality, it's a skill you can build. So a lot of us think, well, I wasn't born confident, right? Confidence is something we can build day in and day out. It's something that we should be building every single day because, we have new things that arises, new challenges, and when we have the tools and resources to keep moving forward, in spite of it, that's how we build our confidence. And confidence is really about knowing you're capable, right? It's about knowing you are more than capable to figure it out, to go out there and take the first step. And, sometimes we have a confidence gap because there's a disconnect between how capable we are versus how capable we feel, right? Who's ever felt like they weren't good enough, or, you think there's someone else better out there, or you're too young, you're too old. Like we sometimes make excuses for ourselves thinking that we're not good enough when really we're more than enough to go out there and make that first step, or, just take that first step, right? I know starting can be the hardest part of it all. And this is why creating this framework was so important, is to really help you build that confidence, take it to the next level, and be seen as that leader. So we're going to go through each one. This was just an introduction, a little overview about it. So I'm really excited to share this with you. And let's see if there's anything in the chat so far. Nope. Okay. Just wanted to check and see if there was anything that you shared. But yeah, feel free to share in the chat. I'll also go in from time to time to kind of just see what you've written or what you've kind of shared, some of your moments. But let's start with voice. So V is for voice, right? Say what matters clearly and directly. Lead with the insight, not just the data. Use simple, decisive language. avoid over explaining or hedging, right? For me, this was important, especially when I first wrote my book, right? You know, I didn't graduate with a university degree. You know, when I came to Canada, I had to learn English because I couldn't speak English properly. I couldn't put sentences together. And so when I was approached by Wiley to write my first book, I was like, I don't know if I'm capable to do this. Like, I don't know big words. I don't know, if I don't know how to write a book, right? So for me, that was like a big barrier. And I was glad that I was able to push through that barrier and real not write one, but two books for Wiley. And I realized that, I didn't have to know big words. I just needed to speak from the heart with clarity, with intention, and people can relate to it. And because of that, so many people come up to me sharing that, oh my God, this book was great. It helped me, realize some of the things that I was going through. I could relate to so many of the topics. I've had conversations with my own family members about these situations. And I realized that I just need to have, simple language, people that people can understand. Sometimes we just even need to talk like we're talking to a fifth grader, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. It can just be simple but clear, right? I think clarity is the most important part. And then also leading with insight, not just the data. You've crunched the numbers, you've put in the work, but if the other side cannot understand what these numbers are, then it's to them, they're just numbers. But if you can tell them why these numbers matter, what decisions can affect it, then they're more willing to listen, right? And then, of course, again, I tend to over explain things, and I realized I had to learn to let that go and just be more clear, right? Instead of trying to over explain, thinking that, quantity is better than quality, right? Sometimes quantity isn't better. It's just being clear why this matters. And then sometimes we think like if we over explain, we just have more to offer when really we already have everything to offer. It's just being more clear and concise and get to the bottom of it, right? Why we need to share this data, why it's important, how it can affect, the next quarter, the next year, and so on. So instead of here are the numbers we pulled, you can say, here's the key issue impacting margin and what we should do, right? So when they hear margin, of course, people like stakeholders, decision makers gonna be like, okay, what can we do to increase margin or lower costs, things like that. Then they start thinking, and then you can start talking to them in a language that makes sense for them. And don't be afraid to speak up, right? I talk to a lot of professionals who are afraid to just put their hand up. And I've seen this time and time again, right? They're afraid to put their hand up. They're afraid that what if they share something, it might get rejected. Um, and the person beside them has said the same exact idea and was praised for it. And I share this because even if you think it sounds ridiculous or you're afraid it might get rejected, I'd rather share it than not share it, right? Because you never know what the outcome could be. What if it does solve the problem that they were looking for? So practice speaking up. And if speaking up is still something you're scared to do, there's, pick three or four different ways to communicate. If you're too scared to, speak up in a meeting, like just, talk to the person one-on-one or send an email or have an anonymous suggestion box, right? Start somewhere because we're all different. We all have different communication styles. And if we pick three or four that works, we just start with that and then work our way up. So why this matters, leadership can quickly understand what matters and acts. So when you can do it with clarity, it makes it a lot easier. And again, you don't need to, know all the terms. You just need to, sometimes we just need to speak like we're human, right? Get the facts, tell them why this is essential, why they need to pay attention. And, it's just a lot easier and a lot better. And let's see. Toby said, if you have just joined and you would like to earn a CP credit today, please be sure to sign in with your first and last name for the certificate. So this is just a reminder. If you need to edit your name, please click on participants, hover over your name, click on the three dots and click rename. So this is from Toby. So in case you didn't hear it from the first time, this is just a reminder for everyone. You can also check it on the chat. So I is for identity, right? Shift from reporter to strategic partner. Sometimes we're just seen as the numbers person, right? And then once you're just a numbers person, people think you're all about just numbers when really you're the key person to drive those decisions. Those numbers matter because those numbers will help that stakeholder or decision maker decide, what to do in the next quarter, what to do in the next week, how they can turn the company around or make it better or lower production or, there's so many factors that comes with those numbers. So here's something that I want to share with you. You're not just delivering numbers. You're more than that. You're shaping decisions. Your perspective has weight. You've done the work. You know what matters. You know how it can affect, a company's status, it could be the key decision maker to, going to the next level or thinking of other ways or pivoting, right? You're not the work that you do is more important than you realize. So here's a key shift for you. Stop waiting to be asked. Start showing up with a point of view. Don't wait for permission. You can just go up and share it, right? Sometimes you have to be a little bit bold, right? I remember, I was the same way. I used to think, I'm just gonna wait for people to come to me because, I'm afraid to share it. I'm afraid people might think that I'm too much, I'm too this, I'm too that. And I realized I just kept waiting, nothing happened. And so I realized I just started showing up in small ways and then slowly built it up and be okay to say, hey, I have something that might be beneficial for you. Hey, I have this framework that might be beneficial for you. Like this talk, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't reach out to Toby and Rafe mentioning, hey, I have this framework that might be beneficial to your audience, right? I wouldn't be here today if I didn't just go out there and start showing up. And it took me a while to realize that, right? Because before I'd be thinking, oh, nobody wants to, connect with me. Nobody wants to work with me. Sometimes they don't even know I exist. So I have to put myself out there, show up, be in front of the right decision makers to get those opportunities, to get to the right decision makers. So instead of waiting, be okay to start showing up. This is part of confidence and leadership skill, right? Being your own advocate, being okay with it. I know it's uncomfortable. I've been there. There was days where, I would like have so much anxiety showing up or even making the first move. And I realized the more action I took, the better I became at it. So, being able to do that, this is how you start being seen as a trusted advisor, not just support, right? And identity also goes beyond that, right? It's about, how you were brought up, the values you live by. And this is something that we want, right? We also want you to show up as who you are as a person, right? Because you have experiences, life stories that, that can help you contribute to these insights as well, right? And especially in the world of AI, AI is rising really fast, right? The most important thing people are looking for nowadays is human connection. So being who you truly are, I know that sounds a little bit, um, it gets overplayed a lot. We hear it all the time, but it is true, right? People will be able to relate to you. People will gravitate to you because of who you are as a person, how you are as a leader, the values you have, how you were brought up, the experiences you've gone through, the stories, and all those are part of who you are, and it's important to show up in that space as well. So S is for spotlight. Direct attention to what matters. Not everything deserves equal airtime. Highlight risks, opportunities, and decisions. Guide leadership through the story, right? This is important. When you can pinpoint the things that matter to them, spotlight it so they can understand why it's important to talk about it, why this is an important key decision maker, why the numbers matter. Filter the noise so others can act faster and make better decisions. And spotlight also goes beyond that, right? Spotlight is also about you. It's important again to spotlight what you've been able to achieve, to be able to share what the numbers mean and why you were able to work on that. My biggest concern is that you do the work and then somebody else gets credit for it. And I've seen this time and time again. In fact, I literally just watched a movie last month about, I won't say which movie, but there was a scene that really like stuck out for me because this is something that most people really could relate to. So this woman was an accountant who was crunching the numbers, and she was able to crunch the numbers and gave all the info to her male colleague to bring to the meeting. And she wanted to go to the meeting with him, and he mentioned, "No, we don't need you. You were able to crunch the books. This is great. Thank you so much. I'll let them know that you did all the work. I see the post-it note with your name on it. It's all good." And she's like, okay, that's fine. And as the meeting was happening, she kind of went over to check out and see if her male colleague would tell them that it was her that did all the works that, that worked on the books. He actually took that post-it note, ripped, crumpled it and threw it in the garbage, right? So this is why spotlight is so important. I know sometimes we think, self-promotion is icky, it's not good, it's uncomfortable, but it is important to be your biggest advocate. No one is going to know the work that you do if you don't share it first, right? I mean, I grew up in a culture where I was told that, if you do the work, the results will speak for itself. Just work hard, and the results speak for itself. And I worked hard, right? I work hard and I realized that, working hard doesn't equate to leadership roles. It doesn't equate to being seen as a leader. Sometimes working hard is just known as working hard. Just like that woman who crunched the numbers and didn't say anything, she was just known as a woman who was crunching numbers. And so it was really unfortunate to see that, but it was also eye-opening because this happens more often than we realize. And so it's important to also say that, yes, I'm the one who worked on this. I'm the one who crunched the numbers. I'm the one who was able to, translate these numbers into the insights that you need because I understand how important this is for you. So if there's anything that you've been able to accomplish today, feel free to share it out. I want you to share it out. I want you to share it in this chat. This is something that can help us, start practicing, right? The more you keep sharing, putting yourself out there, being the spotlight, the better, that you're more seen as a leader, right? Sometimes the people we see in leadership roles, it's not that they're the most capable, it's because they're the most visible. And I'm not downplaying their capabilities, but you know, I'm just saying that you can also you're probably just as capable or more capable, and the only thing that's really stopping you is being the spotlight, sharing what you've been able to achieve. So I share this because this is so important. Again, I've seen this so many times, and I just don't want this to happen to you, right? I don't want you to put in all of the effort just for somebody else to take credit for it. So this is another part of Spotlight that I really want to share because this is something I've seen time and time again, and not just in this industry, in almost every industry, right? I speak to a lot of professionals who are afraid to share, afraid to say something, afraid to talk about what they've been able to achieve because of this notion like, I don't want to brag, I don't want to sound arrogant, but you're also doing a disservice if you don't share what you've been able to accomplish. So, again, if there's something that you accomplished today, share it in the chat. I would love to hear it. Toby mentioned early in my career, I lived the same visibility you described. As I got older, I decided to stop letting others speak for me, and I was able to get so much more done as well. Oh, thank you, Toby, for sharing that. That is great. And I see some people giving you clapping emojis, which is great. I know it's not easy sometimes to take that shift, but taking small steps, that's how you can do it. So this is why I encourage you, start sharing here, right? Start sharing here where this is a safe space where it's just us. When you can start small, start somewhere where you feel comfortable and work your way up, that's how you can start building confidence. So again, be okay to spotlight yourself, be okay to spotlight the things that is needed for the decision makers to say, okay, this makes sense. Okay, I get why you're doing this. So here's another polling question, a quick check. If remember, please make sure to answer it on the polls and quizzes that's been created. But here's a question. When you present financial insights, what do you tend to do most? So here's four choices. Walk through the data step by step. Share details, but don't always highlight what matters most. Highlight key insights, but hesitate to make recommendations. Clearly state what matters and what should happen next. So again, please answer on the actual poll and quiz that's been created so we can see the results. And this is anonymous. Nobody knows what you answered, so don't worry about it.
One final reminder for those who only register with their first name, if you are interested in getting CPE credit, please go down to participants, click on the three dots next to your name, and enter your full name so we know who you are and can award you the CPE credit.
Thank you so much. Let's see. Oh, here's some of the results. So 7% mentioned walk through the data step by step. 0% on share details but don't always highlight what matters the most. 64% of you mention highlight key insights but hesitate to make recommendations. This is insightful. And then 29% clearly state what matters and what should happen next. So I see 64% mention they highlight the key insights but hesitate to make recommendations. Why is that? Is it because again, we're afraid to speak up and share what we could recommend? We're not confident enough in it. We're afraid of rejection. Again, it is important to make those recommendations because you've done the work. You know what you're talking about. And it's okay if your idea or recommendation gets rejected, right? I'd rather get rejected and say it than not say it at all, right? Sometimes we feel like what we keep asking ourselves, what if, right? Because we never said it. So if this is something that, you're dealing with, again, voice is important. Find different ways to share that recommendation, whether it's an anonymous suggestion box, an email, or even just setting that person aside saying, hey, I do have some recommendations, but I wanted to, check with you first and maybe, like there's different ways. So thanks again for taking this next poll. We have one more towards the end. And let's see what's in the chat. In the beginning, I was told to only present results. Later, I started sneaking in recommendations. I love that, Toby. I love how you mentioned you started sneaking it in, right? Just putting it here, there, kind of like planting the seed, which is really great. Again, that's a great suggestion. So, Toby just mentioned how she was able to do it, just kind of plant those seeds, right? Just doing it little by little, which is what I always teach people, right? Just do it little by little because it's the small, actionable daily steps that yield the big results. All right, let's get to the next one. I is for inner work. Manage what happens internally so you can lead externally. 80% of the work that we do is the inner work, right? How we think, what things we've been through that stops us from moving forward. Trauma plays a huge role in that. And if we don't work through it, we're not going to show up the way we're supposed to be. So, maybe there's some things you've been through. Notice hesitation before speaking. So like we mentioned in the poll, 64% of you share the insights but are afraid to hesitate to make recommendations. Challenge, I might be wrong thinking, regulate pressure in high stake moments. So this all comes from working from the inside, right? Why are we hesitate to speak up? Maybe it's because, one time in grade 5, I put my hand up, said the answer, got laughed at by the students. And that's just one thing, right? Like I'm just saying, there's certain moments in our life that we've gone through that also affects how we show up in the world, right? Again, trauma can play a huge role that, we're not even aware of. It can happen in our childhood. Sometimes it can happen not just, it's not just our own trauma, but we carry the trauma of our parents, grandparents. They say intergenerational trauma goes 4 generations deep. I mean, I had to work through a lot of things to get to where I am today. I'll share a story with you. I was born in the Philippines, and in kindergarten, I went to kindergarten in the Philippines, and I actually failed kindergarten for coloring outside the lines of a photo. And I know that sounds wild, but this is a true story. I was given a photo to color, and I couldn't color within the lines. I had to, I was just coloring everywhere. I was given the same photo to color. Again, the same thing, coloring everywhere. And because of that, I failed kindergarten. I had to move to another school and redo kindergarten all over again. And at 5 years old, you don't know any better, right? You've never heard of trauma. You've never gone through a situation like this where it's like you're seen as a failure for coloring something outside the lines. When really at 5 years old, you should be coloring outside the lines, right? You're getting to know who you are. You're figuring things out. You're seeing the world in a different way. But because of that moment, in my adult life, I was always afraid to start something, to launch something, because I just assumed that anything I put out into the world, anything I launch, I was seen as a failure, or I just thought I was a failure. And it took a lot of work to realize that it was because that moment in kindergarten that it stopped me from launching or just stopped me from, taking the first step, or it was hesitant to even take the first step. I actually hesitated in a lot of things because of that. And I didn't, if I had the proper work done on myself or just had the proper like personal development, I would have realized that just because one person failed me doesn't mean it was my absolute truth. And I didn't fail, right? That was just a sign that I was always meant to do something different. I was meant to color outside the lines. And I know this is a little bit deep, but this is important because there could be something in your life that happened to you that is stopping you from moving forward. And doing that inner work is important. It's not going to be pretty. You might be ugly crying, but like this work is important because this is how it will help you to move forward and be that leader that you're meant to be, right? And this is something that we work on every single day, right? Personal development, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, do as much as you can, right? But do it every day, right? Even if it's 5 minutes, whether it's reading a book, um, attending talks like this, you need to feed your brain with good things, right? It is important. You have to treat your brain as a computer hard drive, right? If you feed it with good things, your computer works well. What happens when your computer has a virus? There's pop-ups everywhere, files are lost, your computer doesn't work. It just goes like off the wall, right? And we have to treat our brain the same way. That's why reading, books is important. Surrounding yourself with people who will uplift you is important. Your surroundings, what you feed into your brain really matters. And I'm not saying that, you're always going to be positive because you've done this work. No, there's also such a thing as toxic positivity. But now you have the tools and resources to help you move forward in spite of the challenges that we go through. Because we're going to go through challenges, and when we level up, it's going to take a lot of work to go from level 1 to 2 and so on. So this is why the inner work is important. Working on yourself is important. If this is something you've never done before, just start with 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes, listening to a positive audio, listening to something inspirational on YouTube, talking to someone, reading a book, listening to a podcast, right? And the more you do that, it will help you because again, it's not taking a big leap, it's just taking small actionable daily steps to yield the results. So, confidence isn't the absence of doubt, it's the ability to move forward anyway. This is important because we think that in order to take action, we have to be 110% confident when really all you need is 51%. 51%. You just need a little bit more than a little bit less. And you can move forward as you go, right? You can build that up as you go. So, when somebody asks, when's the right moment to start? The right moment is now. Will you ever be ready? Probably not, but just do it anyways, because even some of the most influential people you see started somewhere, started scared, started with probably 51% confidence, and just did it anyway. So why does this matter? Your voice only has impact if you actually use it. Nothing happens if nothing happens. But if you take these small steps, again, like speaking up, sharing your work, and even what Toby did, kind of just sneak those in, plant those seeds, that will help you build your confidence. So again, do that inner work, even if it's 5 minutes a day. I know we're super busy, a lot of things are happening, but we can set aside at least 5 minutes a day, every single day, to work on our mindset, to do that inner work because this is like the root um foundation that we have to do, right? A lot of people will ask me, how do I build confidence? And I actually ask them a question back. I ask them, what's really stopping you from moving forward? Why are you, what's the root cause that is giving you that low self-confidence? So, and again, inner work is 80% of the work. Once you can do this 80% of the work, the 20% to take action will be a lot easier and lighter to do. So be as belief, right? Stand behind your insights. Trust your analysis and preparation. Avoid softening your message unnecessarily. Speak with conviction, not apology. Sometimes we think that we have to say the right words for the person to understand. Sometimes it's not the words you say, but how you say it. Saying it with conviction, saying it with passion. When they can hear your conviction, they can see that you really believe in what you do, right? And then sometimes we tend to doubt ourselves, right? I get it. I was the same. I dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome, even writing my first book. I didn't think I was the poster child to write it. I thought there was better people out there. I didn't take any formal writing courses. I told you like, I didn't have like, I thought I had to say like big words for people to understand, but really I just had to put myself out there and I just had to believe in myself and in my abilities. And I know you've heard this so many times, but belief is everything. You really need to believe in yourself, in your ability, in what you can accomplish, because without that belief, you're not going to go out there and take the first step. And in my book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, I talk about the strategy called ready, fire, aim. And I keep reminding myself that because when I have moments of doubt or when I don't believe in myself, I say that to myself because for me, that helps me take action, take imperfect action to get to the result, right? So ready, fire, aim, start before you're ready, take action and course correct as you go, because that's how we can get results, right? I know some of you are like, are you sure it's not ready, aim, fire? No, it's ready, fire, aim, because if we do ready, aim, fire, we end up just at aiming, right? We try to keep aiming for something and nothing's happening. So this is why ready, fire, aim is important. And it helps you build your belief. It helps you see what you can accomplish, and it helps you build more confidence and taking it to the next step. So here's a shift that you can take you can use, instead of going from this might be something to consider, you can change it to this is the direction I recommend. So I hope this kind of helps you out, especially with building up belief. I know a lot of us still probably um, have challenges and myself as well. Like, belief is something I still have to work on, right? Because as I'm moving up, as I'm taking things to the next level, I still question myself. Can I do this? Am I capable? Is there someone better out there? And I have to remind myself that if I've been able to accomplish something before, I can do it again, right? Each and every one of you has accomplished something before, and you can take that process and transfer it to the new thing that you're tackling. So confidence increases how seriously your recommendations are taken. So again, be able to speak with conviction, speak with that belief, speak with that excitement, that passion, because, sometimes it's not how you say and what you say. Sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it. Like, a great example is my financial planner. I know, like, I trust him because I know he loves what he does. Like, I can hear it in his voice. When he recommends something, I trust him because I know he's done the research, he knows his stuff, and he says it with so much conviction that, it's just easy to say, yeah, okay, let's do it. Because he not only explains it, but he shares his excitement for it or his passion for it or, his recommendations, right? And he really puts in that care. Like he cares about his clients. I see that every day when I talk to him. And because of that, I'm able to trust him a lot more. Oh, my financial planner is in Toronto. So if you're in Toronto, feel free to message me and I can connect you with him. But yeah, like I sometimes, to be honest, sometimes there's things he say that I don't really understand, but because of how he says it, the conviction he has, I know that I'm in good hands. So, that's just from my experience, right? Everyone's experience is different, of course. Of course, you have to do your due diligence, do your research, but I know that when I talk to him, and if I don't understand something, he will also explain it to me as well. But again, having that belief, having that conviction, people can see that. So L is for leverage, right? Use relationships and timing to increase impact. A lot of us think that we have to do everything ourselves, right? When really we can leverage systems, our network, tools and resources to get our message across or to scale what we say or to share those insights in a bigger way. And and it's important to leverage that, right? Sometimes you're just one connection away, right? Like we're all here together, we can make connections, we can introduce each other, we can you know share each other's LinkedIn profiles or email, whatever that is. You can start building that leverage as of now as you're in here. I mean, there's about almost 20 people here. I mean, again, you're just one relationship away. So use relationships and timing to increase impact. So align with key stakeholders early, share insights before formal meetings, read the room and adjust delivery. The insight is influence often happens before the meeting, not in it. And why this matters, this is how you increase visibility with leadership teams. So um, be okay to utilize those relationships, be okay to leverage tools and resources, especially with AI. You can leverage AI to talk about, to help you even just how you communicate, help you kind of say why these numbers matter and what recommendations you can make, right? And again, AI is not always right. It's still a technology that we're working on, but it can help you kind of mind up things and get your perspective and realize, oh, okay, I can say this, I can say that. You can still put your spin into it. And then last but not least, E is for elevation. Move from detail to strategic thinking. Connect numbers to business outcomes. Speak in terms leadership cares about. Focus on so what and what next. So your edge is translate complexity into clear decisions leadership can act on, right? I always, when I think of things like, especially, when as an entrepreneur, I'm always thinking about what problem am I solving, right? And when I can think of a way of in that perspective, it makes things a lot easier. And leadership is about that, right? We're trying to help solve problems, make the world a better place, create that positive impact. So when you can do it from that perspective, it's a lot easier to translate the numbers and recommendations and insights that you have. So I hope you enjoyed the visible framework. We're going to do a short exercise, but this was the overview of it. So if there was a letter or a pillar that made sense to you or something that you are having a challenge with, here's a simple tool that you can use even as early as tomorrow. Here's a three-part influence structure. So you can use this three-part influence structure. So the first one's insight, what's happening, two, impact, why it matters, and then three, recommendation, what to do next. So if you take this and structure how you're gonna, present those numbers, it will help you communicate better and communicate in a way where the decision makers can say, okay, this makes sense. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's move on. And here's an example that you can use. Costs are up 5%, which will reduce margin by 2% this quarter. So we recommend renegotiating supplier contracts now. So again, you can use this three-part influence for you. And this is how you can move from reporting numbers to influencing decisions. So I hope this three-part influence structure can help you out. Feel free to screenshot this so you can use it and you just practice with it, right? The only way you get better is practice. You just practice, practice, practice. Maybe the first time you might not do as well, which is fine. Sometimes we have to like embrace the suck and then we get better as we practice on. And then here's a reflection exercise I want to share with you. So again, you can take a screenshot of this, but where are you today and what shifts next? So this is a 3 to 5 minute reflection exercise you can do later on, but I will share each pillar and the question that has with it. So voice, where do I over-explain instead of leading with insight? So again, where do I over-explain instead of leading with insight? Identity, do I see myself as a decision maker or just a contributor? So that's a huge difference, right? So again, do I see myself as a decision maker or just a contributor? Spotlight, am I making it easy for others to see what matters? Inner work, what thought or hesitation holds me back in key moments? Belief, where do I soften my message when I shouldn't? Leverage, am I building alignment before important conversations? And then the last one, elevation, do I stay too deep in the details instead of stepping up? And the final one is, with which of these, if I improve, would increase my visibility with leadership? So again, if there's a pillar that you're having a challenge with, and if it was improved, which one would it be to help build your visibility with leadership? And then we have one final poll. So here it is. What is one area you've most committed to improving after this session? So is it communicating insights more clearly, showing up with more confidence, increasing visibility with leadership, speaking more strategically, not just in detail? So again, please answer it on the actual poll. It's anonymous, and then we'll get the results after that. This is the last poll that we're doing today. So appreciate all the engagement that you have. Appreciate being honest and vulnerable and sharing your answers because, if we're not aware of the problems that we have, then we can't be aware of how we can solve them. So, and thank you for the clap, Toby. So we'll have a couple minutes for everyone to answer, and then we'll have the results after. All right. So, what is the one area you're most committed to improving after the session? So, 8% is communicating insights more clearly. Showing That's 8%. Showing up with more confidence, so belief in inner work, 31%. Increasing visibility with leadership, so 23% of you. Speaking more strategically, not just in detail, so elevations. So thank you for sharing that. So the most that we got was speaking more strategically, not just in detail. So hopefully that three-part structure that I shared, influence structure that I shared with you, can help out with that. And so here's the closing. Confidence is not a personality trait, it's a leadership skill. It can be learned, it can be practiced, it compounds over time. Sorry, I made a typo. That should be time. Most finance professionals were never taught this, but once you learn it, it changes how you're seen overnight. And then one final thought, your insights already have value. Confidence is what ensures they're heard. This is how you move from being the numbers person to a trusted advisor influencing decisions in the room. So I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. We do have a little bit of time for Q&A, but if you would like to connect with me, here's my barcode where you can connect to my social media, check out my books, my websites. I have some ebooks that you can check out as well. And if you would like a copy of this presentation, you can go to this website, sheenayapchan.com/presentations. Just put in your info and I'll have it sent straight to your inbox. And I'll also share the link here. But yeah, we do have some time for questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or you can unmute. Um, and then we also have an end of the webinar poll that you will also input. So make sure to check that out. But yeah, let's see. I have one question from Toby. Do you suggest speaking to your manager if the manager is the one trying to keep you quiet, or don't worry about them and just do it? So this is a good question. And I think sometimes it's important to trust our intuition, right? If you have a manager that's trying to keep you quiet, don't be afraid to be a little bit bold, right? I remember speaking to a client where she actually went to her boss's boss and asked to have a coffee chat with her boss's boss. And the boss's boss said yes. She was so excited. And then, her peers, her manager told her, I don't think this is a good idea. What are you going to get out of this? Like, what if you say the wrong thing? And she came up, she asked me, do you think I should go for it? People are telling me I shouldn't because it might be a bad idea. And I already told, the client, like, you already got this moment. The person already said yes. It's 30 minutes of your time. It would look bad if you said no when you were the one who reached out to your boss's boss. So she did go for that coffee chat. She was really happy. And sometimes it's okay, sometimes you just got to be a little bit bold, right? They always say fortune favors the bold. So, um, don't be afraid to do it, right? If you feel like that's something that, is hindering you, then, find other ways to do it. Maybe it's talking to your boss's boss or, you know, talking to your HR representative. But, if you keep quiet, nothing happens, right? So, Toby, I hope that answered your question. Anybody else?
So if you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But I have received a couple other questions. And one of those is, why do you think confidence has become such an important leadership competency in finance today?
Yeah, I mean, confidence is important, right? Because, I mean, if we don't, like, confidence is about knowing your capability. If you don't think you're capable to go out there and share your insights, share your recommendations, you're not going to go out there and do it. And especially with the rise of AI, the ones uh, the skills that we're seeing as soft skills are going to be the skills that we need today, are going to be the skills that we need from now and beyond. So confidence, leadership, resilience, emotional intelligence, those are going to be more important now than ever. And if you don't have the confidence to be seen as a leader, to, share your insights, even speak up in meetings or even share a recommendation as to the insights you've provided, how are people going to see you as that leader, right? And I know it can be the hardest thing ever. It can be very scary, but being fearless isn't about having no fears. It's about having that fear and doing it anyway, right? And so you may tremble, you may stutter. I get it. But, I'd rather tremble and stutter and say it than not say it at all. In fact, I was at the bookstore last weekend and because I saw one of my books at the bookstore and there was a man beside that came up to me and asked me if that was my book. And he had a speech impediment and he told me as well, right? But, that never stopped him to become a motivational speaker. He was telling me how he does keynotes, he does this, he does that, he speaks. And I thought that was amazing, right? Because he didn't let that limitation stop him from being a speaker. It actually fueled him. It gave him the confidence to be on stage and speak regardless of it. Because a lot of us think we have limitations, we go through challenges, but if we really want something, we're going to go out there and do it. And confidence is part of that, right? We're going to take the first action, take the first step. We're going to be courageous enough to go out there and ask the right, ask people for advice or, steps or mentorship, sponsorship. Again, it's all about knowing your capability and knowing you could do it and also thinking you are more than capable, right? That's why we have the gap because again, the confidence gap is the disconnect between how capable you are versus how capable you feel. And if you don't feel capable, how are you going to go out there and do it? That's why belief is so important. You really have to believe in yourself, believe in your capabilities to make the first step, to take the first step. So confidence plays a huge role. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. Here's another one. What's the biggest shift you see when finance professionals start applying this approach?
I mean, the transformation I see, right? I can hear the more conviction in their voice. I can see how they're just more comfortable showing up, right? Showing their faces, showing their brand, showing what they stand for, showing up as the person that they are. I've seen this time and time again when people show up who they truly are, that helps them, um, you know, communicate better, communicate with clarity, be able to make those recommendations. And they all had to start somewhere, right? And they also had to work through a lot of their own battles, right? Doing that inner work. When you can do that inner work, it helps you become more confident, more willing to take action regardless of what happens. So that's a transformation I've seen. Like I've seen people, people would send me messages how they went from not speaking up to being okay to speak at meetings, being okay to suggest, do recommendations, or um, just even even be able to ask a question. So thank you, Toby. I'm so glad you love the presentation. We do have, I think, one more minute if anybody has any last minute questions. But appreciate you for staying throughout the whole hour. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation, the poll questions. Let's see if there's anybody else in the chat.
Before
I
we do
find it
leave, I wanted just to remind everyone to keep an eye on our PACE channel on LinkedIn for other webinars in our series. I invite you to sign up for our newsletter, which contains information about our upcoming webinars and our other resources, and it'll let you know the details about who's speaking and when. And thank you, Sheena, for a great presentation. I think we all learned a lot. I think we'll all start speaking up a little more and assuming more of the leadership role in our organization, which is so critical for their success and our own personal success as well. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone
Thank you,
else, for joining
everyone.
us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you so much again for having me as a speaker. Thank you for taking the time to listen. And yeah, feel free to connect with me on my social media channels. And yeah, thank you again.
Take care.